Hey everyone, welcome to another NASCAR Thunder modding video. The ModMaster tool has received another update and this has quite a few features in it. I'm just going to list them off quick and we'll go into a couple of them more in depth. Some of them are a bit self-explanatory. Among the new features are sped up texture generation, random stat variance, sponsor text and images in career. This is just the visuals for the menu. We'll get into that more. Package sponsor randomization, so now you can actually get package sponsors among the new packs and it should show the appropriate sponsors. Qualifying time adjustment, and finally race team names. Qualifying times have their own tab. You'll notice it from the main screen. You won't see this once you hit finalize, but it'll be on the main screen. And it just has track names, and not all tracks in the game are available here. The table of data that we are updating with the mod tool does not have all of the tracks, so I'm actually not sure where some of the track data is generated. Also in my testing, I noticed later in the career mode that the times actually change and get faster, so I can't promise that this will be accurate or that this won't need some tweaking in the future. What I did essentially was I set the pole time based on what I ran in a 100 perfect rating car, and then I ran in a 50 flat base car and made that about 35th place speed, and then that gap to fall back with an even gap, because how the game does it is it has a pole time target and a gap between each position. So I had to calculate that based on a perfect rated car and a 50 rating car to 35th spot, because you want to be able to qualify about 35th for the sponsor goals. So what I have here, what you can edit, is a pole target time and a gap, and if you change either of these, you just type the values in, but if you change either of these, then the 40th place estimate will update, and that just gives you an idea of what last place will be. Well, not quite last, but 40th. If you change any of these, just go ahead and hit save. And again, these are only going to apply to the tracks that are listed, which are all the base tracks and a couple of the road courses or the road course variants of the ovals. It doesn't have Old Homestead though, so I can't even change that one. I'm sure this data lives somewhere else in code, I just haven't found it yet, but for now this is at least something to start with, and I believe it'll update the qualifying times in career mode to start. So you should be able to qualify a little more of where you should be pace-wise, or at least to what your car rating should be. Another update I want to point out is the random stat variance is incorporated. So this value here, which is set individually on each driver in the pack, this is a bit more of an advanced change, but the random stat variance has been utilized. So you can have variance in everybody's stats. If you set everybody to, like, say 5%, then their stats will randomize. Each time that you generate the PNATCH, it'll randomize within that variance percentage, plus or minus. So for the rest of the features that have been added, we got to peek behind the curtain a little bit here, just to show you there's a couple new things here. So in the car folders, after you've generated the textures once, or if the pack comes with it, some of the packs might get updated with this, but it doesn't matter if they do or don't. Once you've generated a texture, it takes this car file and makes a medium and a small size version, and the reason for those different versions is that the game uses different resolution textures depending on how far away the cars are. It's a performance helping adjustment. Now the program already generated these in the different sizes before, but the difference is that it takes a while to resize an image and resave it, and that was what was slow on the generating textures button. So previously, when we generated textures, it took a long time, but now it takes just a few seconds, as you could see, to generate the paints. So as long as those small ones exist, it'll go a lot faster, and if they don't exist, the program will create it the first time that you generate them, and then the next time you generate paints, it should go faster. So that should take care of itself over time, even if you don't update the packs, or even if I don't get a chance to update all of them with the smaller textures. Package sponsors. So package sponsors, they will show up in the game already, but the sponsor that's shown visually will not necessarily be correct. So what I did is when you change your PNATCH file, the sponsor that is available as a package sponsor will change. Now, if you don't have a package sponsor available, it won't make one available. But every time you generate the PNATCH, if you had a package sponsor available, it will change it, even if you didn't do a race. So you technically can game it a little bit to get variation if you don't like something that's offered. But I just did this so that we can get the actual correct logos showing up, so you know who you're actually getting a sponsorship offer from. Some of the existing car packs won't have this file that's necessary for this. Essentially, you just need a sponsor PNG file. This has to be 256 by 256, or at least that's the recommended size. It just has to be a 1-to-1 ratio. I created these for the 2004 pack, and that'll be released before this video is even up. I also set up individual sponsor offers, not just the package ones, to be customizable a bit. To create a pack of these, you just go to your NTO4 data folder, into your sponsors folder, and you can create a folder here if you want to add a new option. I only made a few for the 1990 season just as a sample for my own pack that I'm working on, and just to show you guys an example of this. But if any of the painters or if you yourself want to create other options, you totally can. Again, simply the sponsor textures, they have to be 256 by 256. They have to be PNGs. And the only difference here, or the way you determine what text shows up in the game, is what you name the image file. So if I wanted this to actually show up as Alka-Seltzer with a dash in it, then I just add the dash to the name. The rest of them will show up as the text is down here, is what will show up in the game when you have the option, as well as the image. Now, these are just for the menu only. They're just kind of to help you get a little bit of lore going, and maybe, you know, if you do custom paints in your career mode, maybe mix up the options for your sponsors. But they don't actually work on the in-game car, unfortunately. That's a big asterisk here. I've not found a way to replace those textures and to get them to show up on the car. I really, really wish we could do that, but unfortunately, I've not found anything close to being able to do that in the game. Not with the current emulator state. It doesn't export any of the textures for that, so if it doesn't export them, then we can't import them. As simple as that. In the ModMaster tool itself, when you hit Finalize, it takes you to the Point Adjustment tab. You have the Schedule tab, you have the Finalize tab, which we've already been over in other videos and have been released. But we now have this Sponsors tab. So on the left, you'll see the original sponsors in the game. On the right, you'll see if it's manufacturer specific, it's called out as such, which means these sponsors will only show up for that manufacturer. I don't really have a good way to change that, so your new sponsors that end up here will be stuck there. You just hit this drop down and select what sponsor set you want, and this is based on the folder names that you created in that sponsors folder, as I showed you earlier. So the 1990 option is what I have. Then you hit load sponsor set. And when you click Load Sponsor Set, it will randomly assign all of your sponsors to different slots here. It's completely random right now. You can re-randomize with the click of this button here to get the sponsors to go to different spots. Now, once you've set this up and you save the core pack, it will continue to apply these. They will not get reassigned. So if you reload a game, or if you update the pack to be at a specific track, as long as you don't re-randomize these, they should load back in correctly. Now, I currently don't have a good way to assign the sponsors manually to what it overrides, and the only real reason I could think to maybe have this would be the manufacturer-specific sponsors would probably make sense to be able to assign, or if you want certain sponsors to definitely show up in the game, if you have more sponsors than are listed here. Once these are set up, whenever you finalize and you generate your PNATCH and your paints files both, then these sponsors will get ported over correctly. If you just do the PNATCH, it's only going to change the text that shows up with the sponsor options. If you only do the paints, it's only going to affect the images. So you want to make sure you do both if and when you change these sponsors. Something that got added with this update are team names. This should already be done in all of the packs by the time this video goes up. You will have to re-download the packs for this to take effect. But essentially, if you wanted to do this, if you're making a new pack or you wanted to edit a team name or add a paint scheme or something like that, I want you guys to know how to do this. So what you do is you go into your driver folder that you want to update in that season. You open this data CSV in anything. It can be a text editor if you want. And there will be one field that's blank. If you remember from my earlier videos, there's the third column or the third field didn't have any entries in it before. I forget what I was going to use it for originally, but I didn't end up using it, but I left it blank. Well, now we can put the team name in there. It's a perfect spot for it. Because some drivers may end up changing teams mid-season, so that you have the different options available in the pack. I wanted to keep this specific to the paint schemes and to the drivers. As long as this name is the same between multiple cars, then they will be put on that same team in the game. I made sure that it only generates one team between the multiple drivers. As long as that team name is exactly the same, they'll get assigned to the same team and be essentially teammates in the game. As always, thank you guys for tuning in. There's only a couple more tiny updates to be done as far as I'm aware for actually modding the game without discovering new things, which isn't outside of the realm of possibility, but of what I know I can do and what I had planned to do, we're starting to near the end of these updates. Now, obviously, there are plenty of seasons for packs to be made. I'm working on the 1990 pack. I know a couple of people are working on 05 and 06, I think, to fill our gap. So there's plenty of other seasons to be made. There's an 03 Busch coming, or maybe it's 04 Busch. I forget which one. I think it's 03. So there's plenty more to come. But as far as the actual tool itself and the abilities we have, unless I discover some other things, which I will still be messing around and trying to find new stuff, but unless I discover new stuff, we're nearing the end. The only major, the air quotes, major things left are the driver markers, the little icons that pop up when you have them on for rival markers, and if you have them on for when they're behind you. The color of that icon right now is whatever it was in the game. I have to find where that data lives. I actually don't know how to update that yet, but I want to figure that out so that the numbers actually look nice in the bubbles. I also wanted to do a feature for stat evening, so like balancing out the stats between multiple drivers for super speedway races. Now, the hard part there is knowing what to let you guys set it to for different parts of your career so that the pack's actually still competitive. But there's only so much of this we can do. Making them a big pack isn't going to make it perfect because they still have their variance in the game with their stats. But we can do this to some extent, and I do want to add a little checkbox feature for that when you're running a super speedway. Lastly, a very small change I want to do is have name customization so that if you make a pack, something down the road that I wanted to do was have packs where it was maybe all of the champions, and I know I've mentioned this before, but all of the champions in the history of NASCAR, and obviously any repeat champions, you want their stats from each season to be in the mix, so we're going to have to duplicate drivers and have multiple of the same driver in the pack. And what I want to do is allow a way to customize their names further on the end of it so that when you're in the career mode or you're in season mode or whatever you want to do with these custom packs, you can tell them apart. So whether you slap the year onto the car or onto the driver name or whatever it may be, obviously like someone like Earnhardt who ran very, very, very similar paint schemes, really just a couple sponsor changes here and there, his car is going to be hard to decipher between. So by allowing the name changing, that will make it a little easier to tell them apart in the middle of a race, or at least on the standings page especially. That's probably the big place to be able to tell the difference of who's who. That's about it though. There's other things I want to do. There's other things I'm looking at, but that's pretty much all that I know I can do for sure. I think another one is renaming race events. That's another small one that I should be able to do. But that's about it, guys. We're narrowing down the features. I appreciate all the support and the small community that has built around this. I really hope we continue to grow because I think we can really get more packs done, more paint schemes done, and make this a full race through the years experience in career mode or season mode, which will be fantastic. There is one or two other small things I might have to do to make season mode a little more enjoyable, because when you switch between packs, your car is going to change. So obviously we may want a way to lock you into a certain car. But that's the sort of stuff that I've not gotten to yet, but we can definitely do something along those lines for sure. Thanks again for watching, guys. Have a good one.